In a small, unremarkable town, there lived a dog named Charlie. He was just like any other dog, or at least he had the potential to be. But the cards he was dealt in life had been cruel. Charlie was born on a cold, damp street corner, abandoned by his mother. He was a small, scruffy puppy with eyes that seemed far too wise for his age. His coat, a patchy mix of brown and white, was dirty and covered in scars from the harshness of the world around him. But even in those early days, there was something about Charlie that made people take notice. Despite the odds stacked against him, there was a spark in his eyes, a resilience that not even the cold world could extinguish. Charlie's first few weeks of life were spent rummaging through trash bins, searching for anything to eat. He had no real home, no loving human to care for him, and certainly no shelter from the wind and rain. The streets were his only companions, and the cars speeding past him were his only constant reminder of how alone he truly was. The world seemed indifferent to his existence, just another stray dog on the outskirts of town, forgotten and overlooked. But one day when Charlie was about 4 months old, his life would change forever. It happened on a Tuesday morning. The sun was barely rising, and the streets were still damp from the previous night's rain. Charlie was on his usual route, sniffing through a pile of discarded fast food wrappers when he noticed something different. There, just a few feet away, was a car that had pulled up along the curb. It was an older sedan, its paint chipped and faded, but something about it caught Charlie's attention. It wasn't the car itself, but the man standing next to it. The man was tall, dressed in a worn jacket, and he seemed to be in a hurry. Charlie had learned not to trust people, but there was something about this man that piqued his curiosity. The man had a calmness about him that made Charlie feel a strange sense of comfort. As the man walked toward the car, Charlie trotted over cautiously, his tail wagging just a little. The man noticed Charlie immediately. He knelt down, his tired eyes softening as he looked at the small, scruffy dog standing before him. Charlie sniffed the man's outstretched hand, unsure but willing to take the risk. The man didn't push him, didn't try to grab him, but instead waited patiently, allowing Charlie to make the first move. After a few moments, Charlie took a tentative step forward and licked the man's hand. That simple act marked the beginning of a bond that would change both their lives forever. The man was named Peter. He worked as a mechanic at a small garage on the outskirts of town. He had seen his fair share of hardship in his life, but he wasn't one to show it. He had grown used to the loneliness that came with his job, the long hours spent tinkering with engines, and the silence of the workshop that echoed in his mind long after he'd gone home. Peter didn't have a family of his own, and though he had once considered adopting a dog, he never thought it would actually happen. But that day, as he looked into the eyes of this scruffy little dog, he felt something stir inside him. Maybe this dog needed him just as much as he needed someone to care for. Peter stood up slowly, glancing around. The street was empty and no one seemed to be looking for the dog. He didn't hear any cries from other people or see anyone waiting to take Charlie home. The dog was alone. The streets had discarded him, left him to fend for himself. And in that moment, Peter knew that he couldn't just leave him there. Without another thought, Peter opened the door to his car and gently coaxed Charlie inside. The dog hesitated at first, but the warmth of the car and the kindness in Peter's voice soon convinced him. Charlie climbed into the passenger seat and laid down, his tired eyes closing as the car began to move. It was the first time in his short life that he felt safe, the first time he didn't have to worry about the next meal or the next storm. Peter took Charlie home with him that day, and it was the beginning of a new chapter for both of them. He didn't have much, but he had enough to share. Peter lived alone in a small, modest house at the edge of town, and he quickly made a spot for Charlie in the corner of his living room. It wasn't much, just a blanket on the floor, but to Charlie it was everything. It was a place to call his own, a safe haven where he could rest without fear. At first, Charlie was hesitant. He didn't know how to trust Peter completely, and he certainly didn't understand why this man had taken him in. But over time, as Peter fed him and took care of him, Charlie began to relax. The scars from his past started to heal, both physically and emotionally. Charlie wasn't the same dog he had been when he was on the streets. He was beginning to thrive. Peter noticed the transformation almost immediately. Charlie became more playful, his tail wagging when Peter came home from work. He started to learn commands and even began to trust Peter enough to sit next to him on the couch. For the first time in a long while, Peter didn't feel quite so alone. He had a companion now, someone who needed him just as much as he needed the companionship of a dog. But it wasn't until months later that Charlie would show just how much he had changed, and how much he had to offer. One evening, as Peter sat in his living room watching TV, he heard a noise coming from the backyard. It was faint at first, just a rustling sound, but then it became more distinct. There was something, or someone, moving around outside. Peter stood up, his heart racing. He wasn't expecting anyone, and his immediate thought was that it might be someone trying to break into his house. Charlie, who had been curled up on the couch, jumped to his feet and ran toward the back door, his tail stiff and his ears perked. Peter followed closely behind, opening the door just enough to see what was going on. In the dark backyard, Peter could make out the silhouette of a figure. Someone was attempting to climb over the fence. Before Peter could react, Charlie darted past him, racing toward the intruder with surprising speed and ferocity. The man didn't stand a chance. Charlie barked loudly, his growls deep and powerful as he lunged at the intruder, catching him off guard. The man stumbled backward, tripping over his feet as he tried to scramble away. Charlie didn't let up, continuing to bark and charge toward him with everything he had. Peter watched in stunned silence, realizing that Charlie wasn't just a dog anymore. He was a protector, a fierce guardian of the home that Peter had given him. The intruder, panicked and frightened by the sudden onslaught, turned and fled, scrambling over the fence and disappearing into the night. Charlie stopped at the fence, growling one last time before returning to Peter's side, his tail wagging as if proud of his actions. Peter stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. He had just witnessed a miracle. Charlie, the dog who had once been discarded like trash, had just saved him from a potential break-in. He had gone from being a scared, hungry puppy on the streets to a brave protector, willing to risk everything for the man who had given him a chance. Over the years, Peter and Charlie's bond only grew stronger. Charlie continued to be the loyal companion Peter had always needed, and Peter was there for Charlie in return, providing him with all the love and care he had never known. Charlie had been given a second chance, a miracle in the form of a kind man who saw something in him when the world had overlooked him. And in turn, Charlie gave Peter the one thing he had been missing: unconditional love and unwavering loyalty. Charlie's story became one of hope and transformation. It was a reminder that even those who have been discarded and forgotten can find their way back to happiness, if only given the chance. And for Peter, it was proof that sometimes, miracles come in the form of a dog, a companion who might not have started with much, but who had the power to change everything. In the heart of a bustling city, amidst the towering skyscrapers and the ceaseless hum of traffic, lived a stray dog named Lucky. With his matted fur, sunken ribs and wary eyes, he was a picture of neglect and despair. He roamed the streets, scavenging for scraps, always on the lookout for danger, his heart heavy with the weight of loneliness and abandonment. One cold winter night, Lucky huddled under a discarded cardboard box, shivering uncontrollably. The wind howled and the rain lashed down, turning the streets into a treacherous maze of slippery puddles. As he drifted off to sleep, his body weak and his spirit broken, he wondered if he would ever find warmth, comfort, and a loving hand to guide him. The next morning, a young woman named Sarah was walking to work when she spotted Lucky huddled under the box. Her heart went out to the forlorn creature, and she couldn't bear to leave him to the mercy of the elements. She approached him cautiously, offering him a piece of bread. Lucky, wary at first, cautiously accepted the offering, his tail giving a tentative wag. Sarah, realizing that Lucky was in need of help, decided to take him to the local animal shelter. There he was given a warm bath, a nutritious meal and a soft bed to rest on. The shelter staff, experienced in dealing with stray animals, quickly assessed Lucky's condition. He was malnourished, dehydrated, and had a few minor injuries, but overall he was healthy and strong. As the days turned into weeks, Lucky began to blossom under the care of the shelter staff. His fur regained its shine, his ribs filled out, and the sparkle returned to his eyes. He was a gentle soul, eager to please, and he quickly became a favorite among the volunteers. One day, a young couple named Emily and Ben visited the shelter, looking for a furry companion to add to their family. They had recently lost their beloved dog, and their home felt empty without his playful presence. As they browsed through the kennels, their eyes fell upon Lucky. There was something about Lucky that drew them in. His quiet demeanor, his gentle eyes, and the way he tilted his head as if listening intently to their conversation. They felt an instant connection with him, a sense that he was meant to be part of their lives. After spending some time with Lucky, Emily and Ben decided to adopt him. They took him home, where he was showered with love and affection. They named him Hope, a name that seemed to perfectly capture his spirit of resilience and his ability to overcome adversity. Hope quickly settled into his new home. He loved to play with his new toys, chase the red dot of a laser pointer, and curl up in Emily and Ben's laps for a nap. He became an integral part of their family, bringing joy and laughter back into their lives. Hope's story became a testament to the power of compassion, the importance of giving back, and the enduring bond between humans and animals. He showed the world that even the smallest creatures can have a profound impact on our lives, reminding us to always be open to the possibility of love and hope.